In Arizona, a shipment of money vanished into the high desert, along with the 2 men hired to guard it. The FBI didn't know if the guards were participants or victims of an ambush. Answers lay somewhere in Arizona's vast Northwest territory. FBI agents struggled to piece together scattered clues to reveal the truth.
In Arizona, an armored van loaded with cash failed to reach its destination. Authorities suspected an inside job. When the vehicle was recovered, with the drivers and the cash missing, those suspicions grew even more. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. This well-planned crime required extraordinary efforts to solve. The FBI knew that the smallest detail could make or break the case.
May 24th, 1977, Phoenix, Arizona. A security company transferred $333,000 in cash and coins from their vault to an armored van. 2 courier guards prepared for another day distributing cash to Arizona banks.
Y'all about ready to go?
We've got a problem with this door. I think we want to take a look at it. Let me see.
One guard discovered a problem with the van's side door latch. They would report to the company maintenance garage before they set out. This delay put Cecil Newkirk and Russell Dempsey an hour behind schedule. The day's route included stops from Phoenix, 150 miles north to Flagstaff.
This is van 26 to base.
With the delay, it would be difficult to make all the stops. Banks waited on the deliveries to provide cash to their customers.
Superior security.
By 10:30 a.m., the security company received a call from a bank complaining they had not received their delivery.
Mechanical problems with the van, so we got a little late start. Well, they should be there shortly. You know,
At first, the dispatchers thought the late start explained the
All
problem.
right, we'll keep us informed. All right.
But throughout the afternoon, the dispatcher couldn't reach the guards.
Base Courier 1. Dempsey, you out there? This is Base. Come on in.
By 4:30, the company contacted the FBI. The Phoenix field office broadcast an APB for the armored van to all area police. State and local authorities used the remaining light of the evening to search for the missing van. They found no sign of it or the courier guards. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth, now retired from the FBI's Phoenix field office, wondered if the guards had driven off with the money.
One of the first things that you do is certainly look at the drivers to see whether or not that might be a possibility as to what had happened, whether there's a driver involvement.
Both of the missing guards were married. That evening, an FBI agent interviewed each of their wives separately. They confirmed that neither of their husbands had financial problems that would provoke them to steal the money. Company officials agreed. Both guards had given 20 years of faithful service. The missing van's route covered a vast area of the state. Authorities had nearly 1,000 square miles to search, and most of that terrain was remote desert. The next day, Arizona Department of Public Safety helicopters retraced the guard's scheduled route. They flew up Interstate 17, north toward Flagstaff, checking all exits. Pilots spotted the van 50 miles north of Phoenix. It had been abandoned a quarter-mile off the interstate, in a remote area near the town of Bumblebee. Arizona public safety officers and local deputies cordoned off the area before the FBI arrived. Agents approached the van cautiously. They did not want to disturb the footprints tracked around the vehicle. The armored van's doors were locked. From the outside, there was little to indicate what had occurred.
There didn't appear to be a struggle on the inside, but we had to actually get inside the vehicle before we could really conduct a thorough investigation or examination of the van. And it wasn't until later on that morning that they had brought a spare set of keys out and we effected entry into the van.
The radio was still on. Yet the base had not received any calls for help. The van's siren had not been tripped. A shotgun kept in the van for defense had not been fired, and its safety was still engaged. The guards had not used any of their resources to signal that there had been a robbery. In the back, agents found bags containing several $1,000s in coins, but $293,000 in paper currency was missing. Blood spatter on the carpet and money bags indicated someone had been injured, but agents didn't know who.
Your biggest fear at the time, of course, is for the safety of the guards. Money can always be replaced. Your life cannot. And so we were certainly concerned about the guards' fate.
Amongst the footprints in the dust, investigators noted a separate set of tire tracks behind the van. Evidence technicians captured the tire prints with photos and plaster casts. Agents concluded that it was unlikely the guards had been overpowered by a single perpetrator.
The location of the van, the condition of the van, and everything that we found at the scene just told us that this was a crime that had been well planned and probably had been committed by more than one person.
There.
Deputy Dale Lent from nearby Mojave County was brought in to assist the investigation. A narcotics officer trained in ground print identification, Lent could reconstruct crimes from foot and vehicle prints. He was one of only 2 trackers qualified to testify in Arizona court.
The first concern was to check the area to see if the guards had been taken somewhere away from the van and something had happened to them. So the first thing I did was do a 360 around the scene, which included checking the road further up.
The guards were nowhere to be found. But on a hill near where the van was abandoned, Lent discovered more tire tracks and footprints. From this position, there was an unobstructed view of the interstate that the guards traveled. Back near the van itself, the deputy found 2 separate sets of large footprints. Based on his observations, Lent concluded that at least one other vehicle and 2 perpetrators had been involved.
The vehicle had come down, backed up near the van, picked up something up, whether it be the 2 guards or whether it be the money. Hard to tell, but I'd say it was the money because it was a trail. It wasn't just one. It was a well beat out path.
Examining the strata of tread prints, Lent deduced that one vehicle had followed the van from the interstate to where it was abandoned. Deeper tracks leading back into the interstate showed that the vehicle had left much heavier than when it came. Investigators believed that, dead or alive, the guards had been taken by the assailants. The FBI turned to the media for help.
We did what we could to keep this on the front page of the news, and we did what we could to make sure that people were aware that we were looking for these guards.
The media reports generated calls from witnesses. Several motorists claimed to have seen the van stopped on the northbound side of Interstate 17 on the morning of May 24th.
They had already been pulled over.
One saw an Arizona Department of Public Safety officer walking towards the van. Other witnesses had similar stories, but details differed. The make and color of the officer's car varied. In some accounts, he was parked in front of the van. Other times, he was stopped behind. Agents contacted the Arizona Department of Public Safety. No officers had reported stopping an armored van on I-17 that morning.
Well, at that point, I was fairly convinced that something amiss had probably happened to the guards, that somehow, someplace, they had been stopped, and they had let their guard down, and that they'd been taken captive. And being that we didn't find the guards in the immediate vicinity, it soon became evident that the guards probably were taken against their will.
The FBI and Deputy Lent searched Interstate 17 for the spot witnesses had described. The tracker found the place where he believed the van had been stopped.
The marks were fresh within the time frame, 24 to 48 hours. You could see where the door was, where somebody got out, where there were scuff marks there on the ground. It looked like, where there'd been movement.
Digs and gouges in the dirt indicated that there had been a struggle near the rear of the van. A second vehicle's tire tracks at the interstate matched those in the remote area where the van had been abandoned. Curiously, the same tracks were found further up the road, just in front of where the van had been pulled over. Several motorists even underwent hypnosis to provide details to a sketch artist of what they remembered. Some recalled that the officer at the scene wore a hat. Others claimed the officer had no hat. But none of the sketches produced any leads. The FBI had reached a dead end. Then, on the morning of June 16, 1977, 300 miles northwest of where the van had been abandoned, two men made a gruesome discovery while fishing at Lake Mead. The men discovered a body floating in Debbie's Cove. They contacted the National Park Service. Investigators sped to the cove where the body had been spotted. Local law enforcement joined the National Park Service divers. They pulled close to the corpse. The body was fully clothed. Its head and torso were covered with a canvas bag. An officer retrieved a wallet from the back pocket. The victim was Russell Dempsey, one of the missing armored car guards. The divers searched the area but couldn't find the second guard's body. Not far below the surface, they discovered two sticks of wood connected by a rope.
Hey guys! What do you got? Okay, bring it on over to the boat here.
To investigators, it appeared to be a garrote used to strangle someone. The robbery was now a murder investigation. Investigators still had nothing that could lead them to any suspects. They only knew that an Arizona public safety officer, or someone masquerading as one, might be involved. On the morning of June 16, 1977, National Park Service divers in Arizona retrieved a dead body from Lake Mead. It was one of two armored car guards that had disappeared on May 24th, along with $293,000. The whereabouts of the second guard and the money remained unknown. The county medical examiner determined that the guard found in the lake had suffered a heart attack. He had also been strangled. Investigators believed that a garrote recovered near the body had been used to choke him. A strand of the victim's hair found tangled in the device supported their suspicions. FBI agents traveled to Lake Mead to question people who were familiar with the resort area. Whoever had dumped the body had likely used a boat to get to the deeper water. More than 20 agents canvassed rental shops around the 247-square-mile lake. No one reported any suspicious activity, but agents collected rental receipts in the hopes they'd eventually have a suspect's name to reference. Special Agent Laird Heastand, now retired from the FBI's Kingman Resident Agency, joined the case. He would search for names on receipts any place a traveler might have visited in the area.
We didn't have any good leads on who had committed this crime. And our assistant agent in charge in the Phoenix office decided to have FBI agents check every service station from the area where the armored car was located all the way up to Lake Mead where the body had been transported.
That was a distance of more than 300 miles. Considering all the different routes to the lake, the agents had hundreds of service stations to check. The agent started his inquiries at the station owned by an acquaintance named Stan.
I asked Stan if he had heard anything about the robbery, and he said to me, "I've been waiting for somebody to come to talk to me." And then he related to me that the day after the robbery that he had to take his tow truck up to Lake Mead and pull a truck out of the lake that had backed out into the lake.
On May 25th, Stan had received a call from two men whose truck was stuck at Benelli Landing on the lake. The men explained they'd gotten drunk while fishing and backed their truck too close to the water. The owner didn't see any fishing equipment in the pickup, but he did notice drag marks in the dust of the flatbed. It appeared that something heavy had been hauled out of the back.
All right.
Stan brought the two men to his service station. He wrote a receipt and asked for a signature. The customers hesitated before one agreed to sign. The name he used was Mike Poland. The station owner believed he'd be able to identify the men if he saw them again. It was the break investigators had been hoping for. The ease by which he found it surprised Special Agent Heastand.
The first place I walk into, I developed this information. It totally caught me off guard and shocked me. And I said, "Oh boy, this is it. We finally have something that we can start from."
Agents searched for the name Michael Poland amongst the thousands of boat rental receipts collected from Lake Mead. After several hours, they found it. Michael Poland had rented a boat the day after the robbery naming Benelli Landing as his destination. It was the same spot from where his truck had been towed. Agents returned to Lake Mead, searching for additional evidence between Benelli Landing and the boat rental shop on the opposite shore. Within the breadth of that 4.5 mile span, officers spotted another bag-covered corpse floating on the surface. It was the second missing courier guard. He had been severely beaten before he was drowned. The medical examiner found 2 welts on his chest, consistent with wounds inflicted by a high-voltage taser gun. The guard's personal effects were removed, including a self-winding watch that had stopped at 10:37 p.m. on May 26th. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth's team redoubled their search for clues at Lake Mead.
Based upon where their bodies were found and the currents and the length of time that we felt that they had been in the water itself, we were able to track back where we thought they may have been put in at Lake Mead.
That area was just 100 yards from Debbie's Cove, where the body of the first guard had surfaced. Divers focused on a ledge 12 feet down that bordered an 800-foot trench. A sweep of the ledge yielded a third canvas bag, similar to the ones that covered the bodies. The bag was sent to the FBI lab for processing. Inside the bag, agents recovered an Arizona license plate that resembled those used on Arizona public safety cruisers. 2 revolvers were also found, but no prints could be lifted from the corroded weapons. Rocks that matched those from Benelli Landing had held the bag at the bottom. Examiners also found concrete dust caked in the weave of the canvas bag. Agents called on Stan, hoping the service station owner could identify a driver's license photo of Michael Poland, one of the 2 men that had hired him to tow their pickup from Benelli Landing. Among 6 photos, Stan recognized the face of Michael Poland. The FBI had finally confirmed a primary suspect. They hoped Michael Poland would lead them to another. In June of 1977, the FBI pursued whoever killed 2 armored car guards and made off with $293,000. Tire tracks and footprints at the crime scene suggested that at least 2 perpetrators were involved. Agents believed one of them was Michael Poland. They hoped surveillance of Poland would lead to another. Though he did not appear to have a job, Poland was spending a lot of money. Agents saw a new motorcycle on the property. The FBI identified a man who visited frequently as Michael's younger brother, Patrick. Patrick Poland had just bought a new car. When the brothers were inside, an agent approached Michael's teenage son and complimented the new motorcycle. The boy responded that his father had recently bought 2 of them and a lot more. Agents expanded their investigation to include Patrick Poland and subpoenaed the financial records of both brothers. Prior to the armored van robbery, each had severe money problems. Shortly after, their debts had been paid and both had purchased new vehicles. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth compared their income to their recent spending habits.
We tried to document as much as we could as to how much money they were spending and to what kind of means of support that they had. And the two just didn't seem to mesh very well. And when that happens, and then you know that folks have got access to a fairly large amount of money with no real means of support, that's a pretty good clue to us.
Agents interviewed the brother's father and photographed his pickup truck. Mr. Poland admitted that his sons had borrowed the truck on the day of the robbery. The father had mixed concrete in the flatbed several weeks before the robbery. Agents took a sample of the dust for processing. FBI examiners analyzed the concrete sample. They compared it to the cement dust on the canvas bags recovered from Lake Mead. Examiners concluded that the dust on the bag had come from the same batch of concrete taken from the truck. Once again, the FBI asked Stan to look at a photo lineup. The station owner could not identify Patrick Poland as the man with Michael.
This isn't the truck. It looks exactly like when I lowered it right down.
But he did recognize their father's truck as the one he towed from the lake.
That's it. That's it.
Positively.
In the early morning of July 27, 1977, agents arrived at Michael Poland's house with a search warrant. Poland claimed to be a self-employed jewelry salesman. He said that on the day of the heist, he was in Las Vegas buying gems.
There 3 days.
What are you doing on the way back?
Investigators found $12,000 in cash. He claimed it was used for their jewelry business. The agents confiscated numerous receipts. One of them was for a pair of high-voltage taser guns sold to a man named Mark Harris a month before the robbery. A short distance away, agents searched the house of Michael's brother, Patrick Poland. FBI Special Agent Frank Mowry, now retired, asked if he and his brother Michael had been at Lake Mead. Patrick gave a different story than his brother had.
He initially said that he and his brother were there fishing. He was very nervous. He was extremely nervous. He had difficulty in explaining a lot of about his whereabouts, particularly on the day of the crime and the day after the crime.
While Patrick was being interviewed, he received a call.
Mike, 3 batches just by the house. Going through everything.
It was his brother Michael.
Yeah, they're over here too.
He urged Patrick not to talk to investigators. The search at Patrick's house yielded a stash of weapons and $16,000 in cash. The FBI tracked down and processed the cars the brothers owned before the robbery.
Different.
The tire treads did not match the tracks found at the crime scene. Examiners found no physical evidence that tied the cars to the crime. Agents visited the gun store where the tasers had been sold to Mark Harris prior to the robbery. The clerk who had made the sale could only remember that Harris was a white male in his 20s. Since the receipt was found in Michael Poland's home, they theorized it was probably his alias.
One of the things the FBI does is try to eliminate all other good logical suspects, and we did this in that case. The name Mark Harris, a rather common name, we had to eliminate that name as being anybody other than the alias of Mike Poland.
Special Agent Mowry searched public records for a Mark Harris between the ages of 25 and 40.
We actually identified literally hundreds of Mark Harrises, from vehicle records, motor vehicle records, phone books, and every way we could, and went out to their houses physically, tracked them down and interviewed them, and found that they did not have anything to do with this crime.
With no proof that Mark Harris was an alias for Michael Poland, and no physical evidence tying the brothers to the crimes, agents couldn't arrest the brothers. For the next 10 months, all agents could do was keep careful track of their movements. Special Agent Chenoweth flew helicopter surveillance.
We wanted to know everything that Michael and Patrick Poland did, what they had done in the past, what they were going to do in the future.
Investigators continued to document the brothers' spending habits. They watched as the Polands closed a deal on a gaming arcade. Despite the circumstantial evidence, agents were unable to make an arrest. The FBI had to find stronger physical evidence to prevent the Poland brothers from getting away with murder. In April of 1978, the FBI suspected Michael and Patrick Poland of killing 2 courier guards and stealing nearly $300,000. After 11 months of investigation, agents did not have enough to convince a grand jury to indict. FBI Special Agent Frank Mowry desperately searched for evidence that would strengthen the case.
What we badly needed was physical evidence. We didn't have fingerprints. We didn't have any real good eyewitnesses. We didn't have any physical bits of evidence that could link Mike and Pat Poland to the crime.
The agent focused on the 3 canvas bags retrieved from Lake Mead with the guards' bodies. He checked with over 20 sources in the Phoenix area where the bags might have been manufactured. None recognized the work.
Nobody could even give me a hint of who in town would make such a bag. Some even said, well, they probably came from out of town. So I became very discouraged.
The agent visited the last store on his list and showed the bag. The owner recognized it as coming from his company. It was a custom size with a unique stitch sewn only by their seamstresses. He also identified the specially ordered cord purchased from a Georgia company. As far as the owner knew, his was the only shop in the area that made anything like it.
He said, I will have in my record somewhere a receipt, because somebody would have walked in that door there and they would have said, I need to order so many bags, a certain length, a certain width, certain specifications.
At the Phoenix FBI office, agents pored over hundreds of receipts covering years of business from the bag manufacturer. After almost a week, they found one receipt for 3 custom canvas bags dated 1 month before the robbery. They were sold to a man named Mark Harris. Agents had seen the name before on a receipt for a pair of tasers. They had found the voucher months earlier during a search of Michael Poland's house.
Hold on a second, Frank.
The FBI was further convinced that Mark Harris was an alias for Michael Poland. The canvas bag receipt connected the alias to the murdered guards, and cement dust in the pickup the brothers drove matched dust found in the bags. On May 17, 1978, after nearly a year of investigation, the federal grand jury returned an indictment for murder, kidnapping, and robbery against Michael and Patrick Poland.
Gentlemen, these men should both be considered extremely armed.
The FBI suspected that the Polands would not surrender quietly.
They've both already killed 2 men that we know of. You got your route plan. You're going to be picking up Patrick. We're going to be picking up Mike. Check your weapons. Check your vest.
Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth believed an armed confrontation was possible.
It had to be very well and meticulously planned. The Polands were very violent. They had shown their violence. They had a strong propensity to commit violence, as evidenced by the guards' fate. And one of the things that we absolutely knew we could not do was to arrest them while they were in the house. And we absolutely had to take them away from the homes.
Agents feared the suspects would barricade themselves in their houses and shoot it out if they discovered they were going to be arrested.
This guy, yeah.
Agents waited for Patrick Poland to emerge.
Yep.
When he finally did, they noticed he was carrying a case for a handgun. tailed him for a safe place to make the arrest. The second arrest team waited for Michael Poland to come out of a real estate office. Once outside, there would be less risk to bystanders if shooting erupted. The first arrest team caught up with Patrick outside the game arcade. The agents intercepted him before he entered the building.
Back up. Back up. Put your hands up.
We identified ourselves. Of course, he knew me already from previous contacts, and I told him the time had come, and we had warrants for their arrest, and he gave up without any problem. He was armed. He had a .44 Magnum weapon on him and another couple of weapons in his car, but he made no effort to use them.
Agents radioed the other team that Patrick had been picked up. Michael Poland had been in the real estate office for almost 45 minutes. Agents feared that he had somehow gotten word of Patrick's arrest and was preparing for an armed confrontation. They decided to risk entering the building.
Federal agents, please step back. Mike Poland, you're under arrest.
The suspected murderer surrendered without incident.
Cannot afford an attorney, they can provide one for you. You understand what I'm saying?
Michael Poland refused to answer questions. He insisted his brother do the same. No fingerprints tied either brother to the murdered guards or the abducted van. Michael remained confident that the FBI case was weak.
In a case like this, you've got a joint venue. Venue certainly lies with the federal government with respect to the actual robbery of the van, and but we also have a homicide case that rests with the state authorities.
Authorities considered their best strategy for a successful prosecution. State and federal prosecutors decided to split the charges. The Polands went on trial for robbery and kidnapping in federal court. Based on the circumstantial evidence gathered, a federal jury found the brothers guilty of the charges on February 15, 1979. They were sentenced to 100 years.
These were two guards that were very hardworking, very loyal to their company. Both of them had worked for about 20 years for the company. They were actually within weeks of retiring. They were family men, they were good men, religious men, men that had devoted a lot of time and effort and loyalty to this company. And on the eve of their retirement, they were killed.
In November of 1979, an Arizona state jury returned a guilty verdict for murder. The judge gave the brothers the death penalty. The Polands appealed their conviction. The Arizona Supreme Court found that the testimony of a hypnotized witness and the taser gun evidence should not have been used. They also found that the jury had inappropriately discussed the federal trial. The Poland brothers' state murder convictions were overturned. Though agents were certain that the brothers had brutally murdered two men, state prosecutors would not seek a new trial. Because of parole laws at the time, Michael and Patrick Poland would be eligible for parole in less than 7 years. In 1982, an Arizona prosecutor declined to retry Michael and Patrick Poland for murder.
We chose not to because it was the exclusion of the eyewitness testimony.
He cited the cost, as well as the difficulty of proving the case with the evidence that had been excluded by the Arizona Supreme Court. United States Attorney Melvin McDonald was outraged that the Poland brothers might get away with murder.
I had followed it by way of the media and had never dreamed that I would play any role in the case until 1982, when it became clear that the ball was going to get dropped unless somebody stepped in. I called the county attorney and volunteered to take the case.
For the first time in history, a U.S. attorney was deputized as an Arizona state prosecutor. McDonald had to resurrect a case that many considered impossible to retry.
There had been 5 years transpired between the time of the crime and the time of the trial. Witnesses travel and move all over the country. Memories start to fade. And so you've got to recreate and present the crime as if it happened a month ago, when you're facing the problem that it's really 5 years old.
The prosecutor wanted to lock down the exact time that the victims had been deposited into Lake Mead and prove it was the same time the Polans were at the lake, so there would be no question the Polans were responsible.
One of the problems with the finding of the guards was that their bodies were not recovered for 6 weeks. The defense, we knew, would argue that they could have been dumped there by the real killers at any time.
Working with the FBI, the prosecutor found a piece of evidence that had been overlooked in the earlier trials. The second guard's self-winding watch. Examiners noted that the watch stopped at 10:37 p.m. on May 26th. That particular self-winding watch would stop working if it weren't moved for 12 hours. That meant that the guard's watch stopped 12 hours after his arm came to rest at the bottom of Lake Mead.
We actually had watch experts take the watch apart to prove that the watch had not stopped because of water damage. There was no water that had gotten into the portions of the watch that controlled its operation. We literally went all the way to Switzerland to get experts there to talk about how much time it would take for a watch that hadn't been cleaned in 5 years to finally unwind.
Forensics experts used this information to determine exactly when the bodies had been dumped into the water. Their estimation exactly matched the time the FBI had established that the Polans were at the lake, getting their pickup towed from Benelli Landing. The prosecutor explained that the brothers had been there to dump the bodies.
For the drama point, I told the jury that while Mr. Newkirk is dead, he is speaking to you from the grave. He's asking you, look at my watch. I'm sending you a message through my watch.
After 3 hours of deliberation, the jury was convinced.
Will the defendants rise?
On November 18th, 1982, they found Michael and Patrick Poland guilty of murder. The judge reinstated a sentence of death.
All rise.
Once again, the defendants appealed the conviction.
It was one of the rare instances where their case went to the United States Supreme Court. And the United States, in a published opinion, a very closely divided court, again affirmed their conviction and sentences.
How the situation...
With nothing left to lose, Patrick Poland agreed to tell investigators and the families of the victims exactly what happened. In 1987, he gave his confession to FBI Special Agent Frank Mowry.
They had actually spent almost a year tailing the van. They knew its route. On those mornings that it went up to Prescott and delivered its money to the banks in Prescott, they knew the exact route. They knew the stops that it made. They knew the times that it did it. They knew everything about it.
The Polands used neither of their own cars in the robbery. They had rented one with cash that the FBI was unable to trace.
We never found it. It was a rental car. And by the time the rental car was taken back, by the time they figured out what was going on, it had been rented out probably 200 times since then. And we were never able to actually pin down for certainty the car that may have been used in the case.
The brothers affixed a light bar and a license plate that resembled those used by the Arizona Department of Public Safety.
Batteries for you for the CV?
I believe so.
They readied their tools needed for the heist.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we got a spare set.
Good. You got enough ammunition?
Yeah.
The Polands waited more than an hour. The van was unexpectedly delayed. Finally, they saw their quarry. Patrick drove the disguised car while Michael hid under the dash. They stopped the van on the pretext of speeding. Company policy insisted that the guards never open the van doors to anyone, even if stopped by the police. Patrick ordered the driver to step out. When he failed to follow procedure, the driver and his partner were defenseless. The Polands put the guards in the rear of the van. Michael was to drive the van while Patrick drove the car. But when Patrick took off, the van didn't follow. This explained the tracks found in front of where the van was stopped. By the time Patrick reached the rear of the van, Michael was beating the guards. They stunned the guards with high-voltage tasers. The brothers drove the vehicles into the desert near the town of Bumblebee.
Pat.
One of the guards looked as if he had died from the beating. Michael decided that the other would have to die as well. He had a makeshift garrote in his pocket, a cord tied to 2 pieces of wood.
And the one thing we found out about it, of course, is that Mike was obviously the planner, the instigator, and the enforcer, and everything related to the crime, and that he was the one who physically murdered the 2 guards. Pat, of course, helped him at Mike's insistence, but it was Mike who put the rope around their neck and choked them.
Went around the back.
Patrick claimed that Michael had buried most of the money in the desert.
Just had to stop.
At least one of the Polands' relatives knew where that was. Because she cooperated, the authorities didn't prosecute her for her involvement. The money had rotted from the elements in the intervening years. Patrick's confession gave closure to the case.
We knew most of it. We felt better, of course, when the person actually admits it, because there's always some room for doubt until you get it from the heart and from the mouth of the perpetrator.
The courts turned down all appeals for the Polands. The state of Arizona finally administered a lethal injection to Michael Poland on June 16, 1999. After all calls for clemency were denied, Patrick Poland was executed 9 months later on March 15, 2000. Unlike his older brother, Patrick used his final moments to express regret for the pain and suffering he had caused. At the height of its popularity, Chippendale's exotic male dance troupe played to sell-out crowds. People across the country shelled out millions to see them. Then one of the founding partners was murdered. and New York City police were left with no leads. When the suspect finally did emerge, the chase would take the FBI to another continent in the hopes of solving the Backstage Murder.
In the 1980s, two partners created a nightclub that would bring them wealth and international fame. The male strip club phenomenon promised female patrons fun and excitement, but the bright lights hid a dark side. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The FBI would launch a sting operation spanning 2 continents to bring down a man who killed for profit.
New York City is famous for its show business tradition. Within a 4-block radius of Times Square, hundreds of offices are rented by producers looking for their next hit. One such place was on the 15th floor of a building on West 40th Street. In 1987, it was home to Unicorn Productions. Nick DeNoia was its founder and president. Curiously, the 5-time Emmy Award-winning children's television producer became best known as the producer and vice president of Chippendales, the exotic male dancers. On April 7th, 1987, he was gunned down.
Nick.
A colleague heard the shot. He found DeNoia dead on the floor and called 911.
May I help you?
Oh, yes. A man has just been shot in my office.
Hold on, please. I have to connect you with the ambulance service.
Oh, please.
Certainly.
Emergency vehicles arrived moments later. NYPD crime technicians gathered evidence. They recovered a shell casing from a 9mm automatic weapon. DeNoia's colleague told homicide detective Michael Geddes that a strange man had entered the office just prior to the shooting.
He said maybe about a half hour ago, or 45 minutes ago, somebody came into the office and said to him, "Are you Nick?" And he said, "No, Nick is in the other office, and he's busy right now."
Without looking up from his work, the associate pointed the man to DeNoia's office. He never saw the stranger's face. The witness told detectives that moments later, he noticed the same man in the bathroom.
While he was in the bathroom, he heard this guy leaving the bathroom, and a couple of seconds later, he heard the door to his office open up. And then he heard a gunshot.
The last sound the witness heard was the exit door to the stairwell swing open, then close. Detective Geddes traced the killer's path, hoping to find something along the way that would point to his identity.
I took down the route that I thought that the shooter might have taken to see if there was any evidence or anything. And I ran down the 15 floors, I believe it was. And when I got down to the end, there was 2 exits. One would lead to the lobby area, one would lead to the freight elevator area. So I exited out of the freight elevator area, then came back in and exited out of the lobby area just to get a feel for the scene.
On the ground floor, detectives investigated the freight area. They dusted for prints, but were unable to lift any that were usable. The freight elevator operator had seen a man run through the door and out to the street. He recalled that the suspect wore jeans and had dark hair.
He also gave us the exit of how the fella came out of the building as he exited the building on 40th Street, and when he came out, he made a left towards 8th Avenue.
Upstairs, 2 city detectives arrived with Nick DeNoya's brother Val from New Jersey to identify the body. The men had been close. Val was devastated by the sight of his murdered brother. Afterwards, Val DeNoya came to the precinct to help investigators in any way he could. Nick's brother wanted the case solved as soon as possible. Detective Geddes hoped Val knew something that could provide a solid lead.
Being a detective, one of the hardest things to do is to tell somebody, you know, that, hey, we're not going to be able to solve this case right away unless you know something that can help us. And I explained to him at that time, I said, look, if it was something that happened here in the New York area, maybe it was a business relationship here, or a relationship, a love relationship, or some kind of emotional type of relationship, we have a good shot of solving that crime right away.
For Val DeNoya, one name came to mind, his brother's business partner, Steve Banerjee. Banerjee had known Nick DeNoya since the early 80s. Val told the detective that his brother met him in Los Angeles. Nick DeNoya had traveled to LA hoping to build upon the success he enjoyed in New York. The 5-time Emmy Award-winning producer fielded many offers, but one man in particular was relentless in his pursuit. Steve Banerjee, the East Indian immigrant and entrepreneur who had dreamt up Chippendale's male exotic dance revue, wanted DeNoya to fashion a more refined act. Though ladies-only nights in LA were extremely popular, Banerjee wanted a dance troupe worthy enough to draw audiences in New York and Las Vegas. He believed that Nick DeNoya was the man who could make that dream come true. Val DeNoya said that his brother was reluctant at first, feeling the act was too sleazy. When Banerjee promised him all touring rights and 50% of its proceeds, DeNoya accepted the offer. Nick polished the routine and booked the troupe at Club Magique in New York. The newly styled Chippendales dancers became an instant hit. But shortly after his success, Val told the detective that Nick's relationship with Banerjee had soured. Banerjee demanded a larger percentage of the touring profits, but Nick refused to give in.
They were always constantly arguing, and they were arguing about different ends of the business, and, you know, it's just like regular business partners, you know, but they were having trouble. And DeNoya was starting to take his troupe out, and he was going to form a new business.
He was doing very well.
In the weeks prior to his death, Nick was negotiating touring deals for a troupe he designed to compete directly with Chippendales. Stealing market share from Chippendales could cost Banerjee millions. Val offered the detectives his brother's financial records. NYPD set up surveillance at Nick DeNoya's funeral since detectives suspected he'd been murdered by someone he knew. Nick's brother would help identify as many mourners as possible. Nick's partner, Steve Banerjee, was among those who paid their respects. The following day, investigators phoned Banerjee in California to inquire about his relationship with his late partner. For Detective Geddes, the interview had a subtler agenda than fact-finding.
We were trying to get what we call a negative interview, you know, where if he says, no, I had nothing to do with it, we were great friends, and things like that, just to try to disprove things that were starting to be said, so if later on it was involved with him, we could just tie it all together.
You know, it's like I said to you, it's
Banerjee never contradicted what police already knew.
You know,
he acknowledged that he and DeNoya did not get along, and admitted that he was upset that his partner had formed a new dance troupe.
Someone who could verify that for you.
Any help that I can do, officer.
Banerjee added that on April 7th, the day of the murder, he had been in Los Angeles the entire day.
Yeah, you know.
That did not rule out the possibility that a hitman had been hired.
Thank you very much.
But detectives had nothing to prove it. The Denoya family offered a substantial reward for anyone who came forward with information. Police received several calls, but none panned out.
We always felt this fellow, Steve Banerjee, had something to do with it, but nobody could really give us any concrete evidence or even steer us in the direction of where we could tie anybody into what happened.
Lacking any other leads, the freight elevator operator from Denoya's building provided his description of the man he saw run from the stairwell. Though he had seen him only briefly, police hoped it would be enough to prompt someone else's memory.
Pretty much.
Police canvassed the lobby of Denoya's office building well into the evening. They asked everyone who worked there if they recognized the sketch. None did. The killer had apparently vanished in the middle of a workday amongst millions of New York City commuters.
Well, basically the investigation just, it kind of hit a brick wall. And we really weren't going anywhere with it. We had a sketch that was out there. There was a reward that was out there. There was we even put it on television, trying to get some assistance, figuring if the person that did this was from another state, that somebody would give us the information. But we constantly hit that brick wall and it wasn't going anywhere.
No new leads surfaced. To New York City police, it looked as if the killer had gotten away with murder. Four years had passed since Chippendale's choreographer Nick Denoya had been murdered in his Manhattan office. The case remained unsolved. Then, in July 1991, over 2,500 miles away, Special Agent Dan West at the FBI's Las Vegas field office received a call. It was from a man who claimed he had been hired to kill two people for $25,000.
I immediately wasn't sure whether or not he was just a prank call. It's not unusual for the FBI, especially in Las Vegas on a weekend, to receive prank calls, a lot of alcohol flowing. So I asked him to give me specific details of the alleged planned murder.
The caller said that a man named Ray Cologne had hired him to kill two managers of a male exotic dance troupe touring England. They were competitors of the Chippendales dancers. The source said he did not know why Cologne wanted the men dead, but for some reason the would-be hitman had decided not to go through with it.
I'm not sure if the source backed out because of Good Samaritan reasons or because he chickened out. He flew to England and then flew back to the United States almost immediately. I think he flew into Los Angeles and then drove to Las Vegas, basically to hide out.
The agent told the source to meet him at the office at 5 o'clock the next morning. He needed to somehow confirm the caller's story.
He also said that he had worked with the DEA in prior investigations as an informant, and he provided me with the name of a DEA agent in Houston who could vouch for him.
The DEA agent confirmed that he had previously worked with the source and insisted that the man was to be trusted. After the FBI arranged protection for the intended victims in England, the informant described the murder plan. Preparations were made a few days earlier at the Los Angeles home of his former landlord, Ray Cologne, the man who had hired him. Cologne led the would-be hitman to his garage, where they met Cologne's brother-in-law, who had recently returned from scouting the victims in England.
Look, man, we want this...
He told the informant that he could find his targets in the town of Blackpool on July 20th, when the exotic dancers were scheduled to perform there. Because of England's strict gun laws, smuggling a gun in was out of the question. Instead, Colon instructed the hitman to kill his victims by fatal injection. He mixed a dose of cyanide powder into a small vial. They figured it could be smuggled past customs in a bottle of eye drops.
Many times.
The agent needed something more solid than the statement of one informant to bring in Ray Colon. He consented to get Colon on tape. The reformed hitman would call Colon and pretend that he was still in England.
What we were trying to get from the telephone conversations was strong evidence that Colon was a part of the plan to kill the two intended victims, if not the organizer of the plan. We had the information from the source, but we had to verify that through the tape conversations.
Hello? Ray!
Yeah.
Barry, buddy! Are you sure that damn stuff is gonna work? It's pretty rad, buddy.
Yeah, it'll work.
Oh, man, I don't want to...
But and if you want to add something to it...
How long is it gonna take before they croak and hit down? Is that an immediate, if not sooner?
Yeah, right. That's probably potent. You can even put a little, if you want, a little Drano in there if you want.
Well, it's gonna kill them right away then, huh? Okay.
It was evident from the beginning that Ray Colon was not only a participant in this murder for hire scheme, but that he was actually the director of it. Colon provided numerous suggestions to the source on how to best effect the death of these two intended victims.
What wasn't evident from the recordings was a motive for killing two managers of an exotic male dance troupe.
Do you know who hired Colon?
During the conversations, Colon had made reference to a third man who was providing money for the double murder. But the informant told Agent West that he did not know the man's name. 2 days later, on Wednesday, July 25th, 1991, a federal judge in California was convinced that the FBI had enough probable cause to search Colon's Los Angeles home.
What's up?
Colon was surprised by the warrant. It limited the agent's search to cyanide, travel records to England, and correspondence that could link Colon and his brother-in-law to the intended murder. In the bedroom, they found flyers for the male exotic dance tour in England.
Harry, let me have a bag, will you?
They also found 2 handguns in a drawer. Records indicated they had been legally purchased by Ray Colon. And since the warrant didn't specify weapons, the guns were not seized. In the garage, agents did find something the warrant had specified. A bag filled with cyanide. It corroborated their informant's story.
This is what he was talking about.
Then, one agent found something that would break the case wide open.
During the course of the search warrant, we found Colon's address book. Special Agent Andy Stefanik from the Los Angeles office was going through that book, and he noticed the name of Steve Banerjee.
Agent West also discovered that Steve Banerjee, the well-known Los Angeles owner of Chippendale's nightclub, had called Colon recently.
The toll record showed several conversations, several calls going back and forth between Banerjee and Colon. In addition, that same day, we received the results of interviews from the British police on the intended victims, and both indicated that Steve Banerjee was the only person they could possibly think of who would have a motive to kill them or would even want to kill them.
The 2 managers of the rival male dance troupe believed that Banerjee wanted them dead to stop them from competing with Chippendales. This was the same motive that New York authorities suspected was behind the murder of Banerjee's former business partner, Nick DeNoia. Agents called New York City homicide detective Michael Geddes to find out more about the 5-year-old DeNoia murder.
All of a sudden, I got a phone call from the FBI. I really got excited at that point because it was already maybe 5 years, 5.5 years or so. So it looked like we might have the opportunity to give the family their final piece.
But neither the NYPD nor the FBI had direct evidence against Steve Banerjee.
Yeah, you already in Amsterdam?
And agents were still unsure if Cologne would be able to assist the murder investigation.
We at that time did not know whether or not Cologne was involved in the Nick DeNoia murder. The composite picture resembled Cologne, but it certainly wasn't a match.
Despite their uncertainty about Cologne's role in DeNoia's murder, they had strong evidence against him for conspiracy to commit murder. Faced with stiff jail time, the FBI believed he would talk.
Cologne knew that he had to take a hit. There was no question about that. He was caught red-handed in the planning of the murder of 2 individuals. So he had to accept the fact that he was going to go down for some time himself, but that it was going to be a lot less time in jail if he worked with us.
On August 2nd, 1991, agents arrested Cologne and his brother-in-law for conspiracy to commit murder. Cologne's arrest would increase the pressure to tell the FBI what he knew about Steve Banerjee and the murder of Banerjee's partner, Nick DeNoia. What the FBI didn't count on was that Cologne's arrest would make Chippendale's owner Steve Banerjee far more elusive. In August 1991, the FBI arrested Ray Cologne and his brother-in-law in Los Angeles for conspiracy to commit murder. Their 2 targets, who escaped unharmed, were managers of a male exotic dance troupe touring England. Agents believed that a 3rd man, Steve Banerjee, creator of Chippendales, had hired them to kill the men. Special Agent Dan West needed more than a hunch to arrest Banerjee. He hoped that Ray Cologne would provide something more solid.
He knew that, that his best chances of getting the best deal were to cooperate with the FBI. He had indicated to us that we only had a small fraction of the story. He took a sheet of paper, he said, right now you have this, and I can give you the whole page.
As agents had suspected, Cologne admitted that Steve Banerjee was the man who had hired him to carry out the murders. He also told agents that the wealthy Chippendales club owner had ordered the murder of his partner, Nick DeNoia, in New York 5 years before. For consideration of a lighter sentence, Cologne signed a proffer agreeing to help the FBI gather enough evidence to arrest Banerjee. Special Agent Scott Garriola from the FBI's Los Angeles field office learned that Cologne's association with Banerjee had begun by chance over a decade earlier.
Cologne had lived and managed an apartment building on the same street where Chippendale's Los Angeles club was. And by being so close in proximity, he would frequent the bar and over the course of time became close friends with Banerjee.
Cologne explained that his friend Steve Banerjee had immigrated to the U.S. from India in the early 70s. In 1973, the future millionaire opened a gas station north of the Los Angeles airport. He used the profits to purchase a failing West Los Angeles bar, and by 1976 had turned it into the nightclub that became famous as Chippendales. By then, Cologne had parlayed his friendship with Banerjee into employment. The out-of-work musician was happy to perform any job that Banerjee needed done.
Right off the street.
One service Cologne provided was arson. Banerjee wanted his competitors eliminated. Cologne confided that Banerjee directed him to burn down nearby competition. A disco in Santa Monica was the first target in 1979. 5 years later, Cologne torched another club. Neither arson attempt had been successful and the clubs remained open. Banerjee didn't limit his targets to buildings. According to Cologne, Banerjee also ordered him to hire a hitman to kill his partner, Nick DeNoia. Cologne added that DeNoia had successfully sued Banerjee to prevent him from touring a second Chippendales dance troupe. The lawsuit, combined with costly merchandising overruns, forced Banerjee to file for bankruptcy. As instructed, Cologne hired a hitman 3 months earlier. He claimed he remembered only the man's first name, which was Louis. On the day of the murder, Cologne and Louis flew in from LA, rented a car, and drove into Manhattan. Cologne waited on the street with the engine running until Louis returned from shooting DeNoia. The following night, Cologne was back in Los Angeles. In Chippendale's parking lot, Banerjee paid Cologne $12,000 cash, the balance of the original $25,000 fee. Cologne's story was good, but it was only hearsay from a suspected conspirator. He might say anything to serve less jail time. Special Agent Garriola first needed to verify the facts Cologne had presented.
At this point, all we had was somebody in prison telling us, well, it wasn't me, it was somebody else who was behind it. Your initial plan is to corroborate as much as possible what he's telling you. And that's what we did for the first couple of months.
With Cologne's credibility secured, the FBI set out to get Banerjee and the hitman who killed his partner. Agents figured the only one Banerjee would trust enough to confess to would be his old friend Ray Cologne, but they needed to get Cologne close enough.
We had Cologne released out of the jail where he was being housed under a proposed medical furlough because of his health problems. And we started sending communications to Banerjee via letter, messenger-delivered letters, and cryptic phone calls to try and get Banerjee to respond to him.
Banerjee refused to return calls or letters. He was suspicious of Cologne, despite having paid him over $200,000 at various drops around the city to keep Cologne loyal since his arrest. The FBI came up with another plan to compel Banerjee to respond to Cologne.
We decided to force the issue and set up a meeting on our own terms. And we had Cologne waiting across the street from Chippendales one morning.
As agents watched, Cologne called to Banerjee when he emerged from the club. The Chippendales owner was curious as to why Cologne was standing outside his establishment. Banerjee spoke to him in whispers, suspecting he may be wired. Agents had no way of knowing what Banerjee might be planning.
We took several precautions. If he hired somebody else, Cologne, to kill somebody, why wouldn't he hire somebody to kill Cologne?
Hoping to strengthen Banerjee's trust, the released prisoner provided the address of a bar where the suspected murderer was to send more money. Banerjee didn't trust Cologne, but he couldn't afford to ignore him. He told Cologne to pick up his payment the next evening. Agents set up surveillance on the bar. At about 9 o'clock, agents observed Banerjee stopping in front, checking the address, and then driving away. A short time later, a messenger delivered a package. Agents retrieved it from inside.
When we contacted the messenger company that had sent the package, the pickup location where the package was received from was a bakery that was right next door to the building where the Chippendales dancers were practicing and rehearsing.
Back in the FBI offices, agents opened the package, not knowing what might be inside. It contained $14,000.
I guess we got them all.
The payoff meant that Banerjee would continue to keep Ray Colon close to him. But agents didn't know if Banerjee would talk, or if the hitman, known only as Louis, would ever be found. In the summer of 1992, FBI agents continued to surveil Chippendale's club owner, Steve Banerjee. He was suspected of ordering the murder of his partner more than 5 years earlier. Ray Colon, hired by Banerjee to arrange the murder, had been arrested and was cooperating with agents to capture the wealthy club owner. Wearing a wire, Colon met the East Indian entrepreneur at a hotel in Santa Monica, hoping to get his confession on tape. Special Agent Scott Garriola and his team were stationed nearby.
Banerjee immediately motioned for Colon to join him in the men's room. When the two of them went into the men's room, and Banerjee told him to be quiet, not to say a word, he searched Colon about 3 times looking for the wire.
Agents worried about what the suspected murderer might do to Colon if he found the wire. Colon's life depended on the FBI's skills at concealment.
All right? Okay.
Banerjee never found the wire, but it was clear that he did not completely trust his longtime friend Ray Colon. Out in the lobby, Banerjee insisted they communicate through notes instead of speaking. Agents recorded only scribbles and whispers. Banerjee wanted to know how much Colon had told the FBI and what they knew about, quote, the deed. Colon knew the deed referred to the murder of Banerjee's partner. The former musician denied that he had said anything to federal agents.
Once again, we were unsuccessful in getting an audible recording due to the fact that Banerjee basically whispered throughout the whole thing and wrote notes, and when Colon would raise his voice and try and talk, Banerjee would shush him basically by putting his finger to his mouth and saying, no, we can't talk.
Banerjee gathered the notes and returned to the restroom, this time alone. Despite his doubts about Colon's loyalty, Banerjee handed him another payment, this time in plain view of agents. The package held $30,000, more than twice as much as the first. Unfortunately for investigators, there was nothing illegal about giving Colon cash.
On its face, it's basically a loan for attorney's fees for Colon. Without the story on tape of how Colon and Banerjee were partners in these crimes, the money basically was not going to be able to do anything for the case.
After Banerjee's Mercedes was out of sight, agents hoped to retrieve at least a portion of the notes from the meeting. In the men's room under the toilet, one agent discovered a scrap of paper. It seemed that Banerjee had flushed the rest. Though it held only a small pen mark, it would help corroborate Colon's story when it came time to testify at trial. Colon did not remember the full name of the hitman he had hired in 1987, but he did recall that his first name was Louis, and he lived somewhere in East Los Angeles.
Colon didn't have a last name for him, didn't have an address. We had took him out a couple of times, had him drive us around the area, and he pointed out a house that he thought Louis had lived in.
Colon's memory proved correct. The woman who answered the door was Louis's mother. Since she did not know Colon, she refused to tell him where her son was. Colon told her that he wanted to provide work for him and handed her his card. In a few days, Colon received a call.
Unfortunately, what we came across was Louis's brother, Andy, and we had to establish a relationship with Andy to try and find out where Louis was. So we had Cologne talking to Andy about various things. He needed to hire Louis back for a job, same job he had completed a few years prior.
After about a month, Andy finally told Cologne that he could find his brother, Roberto Rivera Lopez, in Los Angeles' county prison. Rivera, whose nickname was Louis, was serving time for possession of narcotics and would be out of jail in a few months. As a heroin junkie, he would need fast cash after his release and wanted to know more about Cologne's offer.
Cologne laid the groundwork once again for this new job that he wanted Rivera to help him with. And the plan that we had set in motion was that there was a witness to the homicide in 1987, and that Louis needed to go back and take care of that witness.
Near the end of 1992, Cologne met with the hitman for the first time in 5 years. With their conversation being monitored, the FBI informant slowly drew Louis Rivera in, detailing a new murder plot. If the FBI ever hoped to get the hitman confessing on tape, it had to be now.
His release date on the charge he was incarcerated for was, I believe, January 17th of '93. We were running up against the clock. And one of our concerns was that, we had laid the groundwork for Cologne and Rivera, that when Rivera got out, he was supposed to contact Cologne to go and kill this witness.
Agents' worries were laid to rest. On Christmas Eve 1992, Rivera described his role in the murder of Nick DeNoia. At 3:30 p.m. on April 7th, 1987, Louis arrived on the 15th floor of DeNoia's building disguised as a messenger. The place was empty except for one man in the outer office. Moments later, when the office worker entered the men's room, Louis exited to kill DeNoia, figuring there'd be no other witnesses to the crime. He found the producer at his desk, pulled out a 9mm semi-automatic, and fired from 3 feet away. The FBI had it all on tape. Ray Cologne had fulfilled half of his agreement with the FBI to receive sentencing consideration on his charge of conspiracy to commit murder. The other half hinged on his ability to secure a taped confession from the man who had ordered DeNoia's murder, his longtime friend, Steve Banerjee. So far, more than a year after his arrest, Cologne had been unable to do that. By January 1993, the FBI's cooperating witness, Ray Cologne, had been unable to convince murder suspect Steve Banerjee to discuss aloud the crimes they had planned together. They had met several times, but Banerjee had been too paranoid or too clever to be recorded. At one meeting, Banerjee suggested he'd help Cologne hide out overseas. Special Agent Scott Garriola and his team used Banerjee's suggestion to form a new plan. Perhaps Banerjee could be lured overseas to talk to Cologne on foreign soil.
I don't think it was too difficult on Banerjee's part to accept the fact that Cologne was going to go overseas. I mean, he wanted to be rid of Cologne. He knew Cologne was the only person that could tie him into these various crimes dating back to 1979.
Since Cologne was still on Banerjee's payroll, agents believed it was likely that he would visit Cologne in person to be certain that Cologne had what he needed for an extended stay. Banerjee wanted Cologne out of his life permanently. The FBI selected Rome as their destination, since Italy's laws and police force are well adapted to surveillance investigations. Agents made extensive preparations before they arrived.
We acquired a phony United States passport for Cologne in an alias name, which you would expect someone who's on the run, a fugitive in another country, to have some kind of phony documentation. So we acquired that. We also entered Cologne into the nationwide crime computer as a fugitive. So in the event Banerjee had some kind of private investigator or someone check the computer, it would show that there was a warrant out for Cologne's arrest because he was now a fugitive.
With the cooperation of the Italian authorities, the FBI secured an apartment for Cologne in Rome that was wired for recording. When everyone was assembled, Cologne placed a call to Banerjee in California. The East Indian murder suspect understood that Cologne would use the code name Mr. Underwood when he called.
Yeah. Hey, this is Mr. Underwood. How you doing, Steve? So when can you come and discuss the particulars? I cannot go to Italy, but I can go to Switzerland. How about Zurich? Can you come to Zurich? No, that's impossible. Why can't you go to Italy? I know this. Huh? It takes a month to get it.
There was a problem with Banerjee coming to Rome since he was not a United States citizen. He claimed he was not able to obtain a visa in time to enter Italy, and he wanted initially to meet us up by the Italian-Swiss border.
Banerjee finally agreed to meet Cologne in Zurich, Switzerland. The FBI had only a short time to make the new arrangements.
It was quite a challenge to get everything accomplished. Basically, this was a Friday, I believe, and it was basically one day since no one worked on a weekend back in the States. We had to get everything, all the necessary approvals for the travel, the country clearance. We had to get the U.S. Attorney's Office to contact, through a mutual legal assistance treaty, contact their counterparts in Switzerland to get the authority, the legal authority to do the consensual recordings. It was quite arduous, to say the least.
We will take
Despite the brief turnaround time, the FBI and Swiss authorities would be ready.
across towards the main door.
The plan was to wire Cologne for a meeting in the hotel lobby. Afterwards, the informant would suggest continuing the meeting in his hotel room, which would be equipped with audio and video devices planted by a special unit of the Swiss police.
The bar.
Two adjoining rooms were booked in a downtown Zurich hotel. One room they wired for picture and sound. The room next door would hold the monitoring equipment. Agents hoped that this time, their efforts would finally be rewarded with Banerjee's confession on tape. From the time of his arrival at the Zurich airport, Steve Banerjee would be under constant police surveillance. The plan was for Cologne to call Banerjee and arrange a meeting in another hotel late in the afternoon. As planned, Banerjee arrived first. Undercover agents and Swiss police were stationed throughout the hotel dressed as staff. He waited in the bar where he was expecting Cologne's call. On cue, the phone rang. Cologne was on his way. This was the FBI's best chance to get the recording they had long awaited. To be sure Banerjee's voice was taped clearly, they hid the wire inside Cologne's outermost layer of clothing, his coat. But Cologne seemed nervous and removed his coat when he arrived. As a result, investigators could no longer hear the conversation. Years of pursuit hung in the balance. It seemed unlikely that Banerjee would agree to meet Cologne again anytime soon.
We had ourselves a major problem. So what I initially did was, since I was monitoring the conversation from the outside, I went into the doorway of the restaurant, and hopefully in Cologne's line of eyesight, and I took my jacket off a couple of times, hoping he would get the idea to put his jacket on.
Nobody's going to come back at us. Okay. The receptionist.
But the agent couldn't get Cologne's attention.
Testimony isn't going anywhere.
The informant was apparently too nervous to look anywhere except directly at Banerjee.
The Swiss police, they came to our rescue. They went in there and they closed the whole restaurant down. They went in and talked to the owner, the manager of the restaurant, said, "Hey, we got a little problem. We need to shut this restaurant down." Fortunately, there weren't too many customers in there, and basically they closed the restaurant down, which forced Cologne and Banerjee to leave the restaurant.
After moving to a noisier bar in the hotel, Cologne suggested they'd be more comfortable relaxing in the room where Cologne was staying. Cologne arrived first. He was met by a Swiss technician who attempted to strip the wire from his jacket before Banerjee arrived. Cologne's device was an unnecessary risk since the room itself was wired.
We didn't know what Banerjee was going to do once the two of them were in the hotel. They had gone from a public place to strictly a private place, and we were a little concerned at this point for what Banerjee may have up his sleeve.
Undercover agents alerted the surveillance team that Banerjee had arrived on Cologne's floor. The Swiss tech retrieved the wire and stepped into the adjoining room. Cologne barely had time to pour himself a drink before there was a knock on the door. The first thing Banerjee did was check Cologne for wires. He found none and began to relax. Cologne poured him a drink. Then his old friend opened up.
In broad daylight, downtown Manhattan.
Banerjee felt comfortable enough to talk about murdering his partner. He mentioned the $25,000 he paid to commission the deed. He also made comments about the men in England that he ordered killed. He even talked to Cologne about the arsons he had paid for back in 1979. After 5.5 years and 6,000 miles from the crime scene, the FBI's perseverance had finally paid off. At last, they had it all on tape, and Cologne earned himself an early parole.
That was the coup de grace right there. That was it. We got exactly what we needed. We pretty much corroborated Cologne, down to every I, dotted I, and every T that Cologne had told us.
On September 2nd, 1993, outside his Chippendales Club in Los Angeles, Steve Banerjee was arrested for racketeering and first-degree murder. Facing life in prison, Banerjee's defense team offered the state's attorneys terms for an agreement. Banerjee would plead guilty to the charges and forfeit his interest in Chippendales for consideration in sentencing. New York State accepted, suggesting 26 years in a maximum security facility. But to Banerjee, the punishment was too severe. On the day of his sentencing in October 1994, he was found hanged in his cell. Michael Geddes, the New York City detective who investigated Nick DeNoya's murder 6 years earlier, was glad to see the case closed.
Ever since Steve Banerjee was arrested and Cologne confessed, what happened is I saw that Val DeNoya, the brother, and his wife actually change. You could see the peace in their face. You could see the smile coming back into their life.
Steve Banerjee had immigrated to the United States to fulfill his dreams of success. Blinded by his pursuit, he confused power and the accumulation of wealth with the American dream. organized crime tore through the suburbs of Chicago, leaving violence and corruption in its wake. Prominent officials were seduced by greed and power, doing whatever was necessary to protect their interests. Everyone was on the take.
FBI search
It would fall on the FBI to weed out the corruption and to find the killer of an innocent woman.
Willow Springs, Illinois seemed like any other quiet Midwestern community, but it was really one of the most corrupt places in the nation. This tiny village nestled just outside of Chicago was in the hip pocket of organized crime. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. It was only a matter of time before corruption led to assassination and conspiracy. To end it required a federal sting operation of astounding complexity.
The bank of a sanitary canal in a remote industrial area became the site of a gruesome crime. The killers were quick and thorough. Nearby, 2 police officers were out on night patrol. When they heard the shots fired, they became alarmed. One of the officers drove towards the canal to investigate. He found nothing as he searched the desolate area.
Hey, Chief.
Also on the scene was Willow Springs, Illinois Police Chief Michael
I
Corbett.
heard it earlier myself, and I've already checked the area, so
He too saw nothing.
I got it covered. See you later.
The following day, a prominent local attorney called police to report that his wife was missing.
Well, Mr. Masters, we'd like to ask a few questions about your wife.
Lieutenant Howard Vanek of the Cook County Sheriff's Department and his partner responded to the call. Attorney Alan Masters said that his wife Diane had been out the night before with colleagues and friends from a local college where she worked.
After the meeting, some of the board members would go to a bar.
She never came home. There was no sign of her yellow Cadillac.
I believe it
He said he made calls trying to locate her until 2 in the morning, but finally gave up. For the officers, the information offered little insight.
Excuse me a minute.
Lieutenant James Keating of the Cook County Sheriff's Department joined the officers.
Yeah, by all means, you can sit down.
Sir, we were just asking Mr. Masters questions about his wife's disappearance.
He asked Masters if he could have a look around the house.
Be happy to. Sure. Yeah,
Masters agreed.
No, not at all.
He had nothing to hide.
Have a seat.
The officers continued their questioning.
Anything else you can tell us?
As far as I
Reluctantly,
know,
Masters
she
offered
made it
some
with her
new
lover, some
information.
professor, somebody works for the college.
He suspected that his wife Diane had been having an affair.
I have no idea
Maybe
who
the
he
two
is,
lovers
you know?
had run off together.
I don't know who he is or what he looks like. I just have my suspicions.
Excuse me, guys. I think we need to wrap this up.
Lieutenant Vanek wanted to investigate further and look around the house himself.
Sir, I think we need to take another look around in here.
Husbands are always suspects when their wives
I look
disappear.
around. There's nothing
Sir,
here.
we need to look around.
It's time to
Something's
go.
missing here,
Let's
sir.
go now.
But Lieutenant Keating intervened. He
Sir,
wouldn't
procedure
allow
is
it.
2 investigators always check out the scene.
In his mind, everything had checked out.
Let's
Sir.
go now.
Vanek was upset. He didn't know why Keating would undermine his investigation. Outside, Keating confronted Lieutenant Vanek, telling him to back off.
There's no cause of
As far as he was concerned, Masters was not a suspect. But Vanek didn't buy it, and he let Keating know.
It's my case.
Just as the two men were about to explode, Willow Springs Police Chief Michael Corbett arrived at the scene.
Look, easy. Come on, guys. Let's be on the same side. Come on, man.
Keating would have the final word.
Vanek, you're off the case. Forget it. You're off the case, man. You got that?
The question still remained, where was Diane Masters? Her disappearance grabbed the media's attention.
And Diane, if you would, please come to
She had been very active in the local community. Diane had worked hard to help open a shelter for battered women. She was also involved in local politics and sat on the board of the Moraine Valley Community
also, we'd like to
College.
present Diane with this plaque to show
She
her
did
how
not
much we
appear to
thank
have
her
any
for all
enemies.
the hard work and her dedication in opening this crisis center, something that is needed desperately in this community.
But investigators began uncovering other details. It was reported by Diane's friends that her husband was controlling and abusive, and that Diane was planning to file for divorce.
You know, you knew.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Tom Scorza followed the case.
We were pretty certain that what had happened here was that Diane and Alan had a regular marital dispute, sort of ordinary dispute, but that it had escalated into something much worse.
Go ahead and send him in.
Scorza's investigation soon revealed that Alan Masters was more than just a bad husband.
Hey, Al, how you doing?
It was rumored that Alan Masters had bribed local officials and police officers to secure favorable outcomes for his clients.
How'd it go?
Very well. Very well. Nothing to worry
This
about at
corruption
all.
extended right to the top of law enforcement. Allegedly, Masters frequently enlisted the help of Chief Corbett.
I don't hear about this anymore when you're worth every penny.
It was also rumored that Masters and Chief Corbett were involved in safeguarding some of the Chicago mob's betting and prostitution rings, which were run out of show clubs throughout suburban Cook County. But investigators were focused only on Diane's disappearance. With no evidence and few leads, that investigation stalled. Unaware of Alan Masters or his wife's disappearance, the FBI had already begun an independent investigation into the mob-controlled rackets of the Chicago area. U.S. Attorney David Stetler worked with the FBI to help unravel the prostitution operation.
Okay, thanks. At that time, there were a number of topless, bottomless joints that one could go to, and many of them were undercover fronts for prostitution. So you could go in, you could watch the naked girls dancing on the stage, and for a price, you could retreat to the back, either to a booth or a back room, and engage in one form of sexual activity or another with the dancers.
The club owners knew that their customers would spend more on drinks and prostitutes if they could use their credit cards. But the patrons were reluctant. They did not want bills arriving at their homes or businesses with charges incurred from nightclubs with seedy names. The club owners found credit card transaction companies that were willing to process the charges using false but respectable business names. Special Agent Ivan Harris of the FBI's Chicago field office was assigned to help bring down the illegal businesses.
The scam was using various companies in order to launder credit cards through their business to make it appear that businessmen were actually eating at a restaurant or using a limousine service to incur the charges when in fact they were charges for prostitution.
Larry Wright was one of the credit card transaction company owners. Wright would pick up the week's transactions from the clubs and process them through his company, National Credit Service, or NCS.
It's really working well.
One of his clients was a club owner named Joseph Marin, whose club was a front for a mob-controlled prostitution house. Wright wanted to expand his own operations. He approached Marin about setting up an illegal betting club.
Yeah, she's mine. You had a chance to really interview her.
Marin was willing to help out the man who made him money.
Yeah, she's still here. She answers to the group.
Wright would first need to pay protection money to local police in order not to be exposed and arrested.
You feel pretty confident about this guy?
Marin was the man who could arrange that protection. Wright was more than willing to pay.
All right.
Okay. He's a really good guy.
Marin arranged the meeting at the Willow Springs Police Department.
I trust him completely.
It was to take place with Police Chief Michael Corbett. It was believed that Corbett had been handpicked by the Chicago mob boss to oversee and protect their interests in and around Willow Springs.
The word on the street, of course, was that no one could do anything in Willow Springs without the permission of the Chief of Police, Mike Corbett. The message also was from virtually anyone you would talk to that he was so powerful, that he was so well connected, that nothing could ever be done about him.
I just want to make sure I don't get any unexpected visits.
Corbett agreed to help Larry Wright set up the new betting operation for a price.
Not quite yet.
In return, Corbett assured him he wouldn't get any heat from his officers.
All right.
Larry Wright was well on his way. He returned to his office at National Credit Service, operated out of a nondescript office park location. Wright worked with 2 other staff members.
Doing great. Larry, great.
But these were not ordinary employees. NCS was not just a credit card transaction service for illegal activities. It was a front for the FBI. Larry Wright was actually undercover Special Agent Larry Damron. And he and the FBI were using NCS to work their way into the heart of the corruption in Willow Springs. While local investigators struggled to unravel the disappearance of a prominent attorney's wife, the FBI had set up an undercover operation in the town of Willow Springs, just outside of Chicago. Their target, organized crime, and the corrupt police who protected them from prosecution. The undercover work was often painstaking and frustrating. FBI Special Agent Larry Damron explains the difficulties inherent in undercover work.
During the course of the undercover operation, you try to immerse yourself in what you're doing, and you try to assume that role because it's necessary for you to do that in order to accomplish anything. Oftentimes you'll hear people make comments, or you'll see people do things that in any other circumstance they would be arrested for immediately. And so what you have to remember is you're in a role and you play that role out.
Damron had heard stories about how the mob resolved problems. They were swift and violent, and their signature was unmistakable. 2 bullets in the head. There was no room for mistakes. Victor Spilatro, a player in Chicago's organized crime, approached Damron at NCS. Though Victor himself wielded little power, his brothers held tremendous influence within the mob's hierarchy. Damron was starting to move into the center of the violent Chicago underworld.
The Spilatros were one of the best-known names of mobsters in Chicago. The older brother, Tony, was the boss in Las Vegas. He represented the Chicago outfit for their interest in Las Vegas. Had been a prominent figure and had been widely mentioned in the paper as having been involved in murders and extortions and things like that.
Agent Damron quickly developed a reputation as an effective businessman in laundering money for mob operations.
We got everything back here that you need. I'll let you come on back.
Sure everything's all right?
Spilatro knew of NCS's activities with the local nightclubs. They were under his control.
Really appreciate what you're doing.
Good, everything's going good with the business?
Yes, it's going great.
That's great. Good.
He told Damron he would have to pay him a cut to stay in business.
I'm glad you appreciate what we do for you. Okay, well that's really good.
Damron had no objection.
The level that we had there is we were paying protection to a fairly important aspect of the mob, the Spilatro family. And so that gave us a little bit of status, if you will. But we had absolutely no authority or anything like that in the mob. We were just workers, and our value was we made them money.
Agent Damron traveled to a remote hotel where he met with FBI Special Agent Gordon Brooks, who oversaw the undercover operation. To ensure that Damron's real identity was not compromised, the two met infrequently to exchange information. Brooks vigilantly kept tabs on Damron. The investigation was as dangerous as it was complex.
Not to worry about things.
The agent cautiously moved forward. He wanted to continue expanding the FBI's undercover operations. He used every opportunity he could to sell the idea of opening more betting and prostitution houses throughout suburban Chicago. Even with a go-ahead from the Spilatros, Damron would still need permission and protection from the police.
To the future.
He met with nightclub owner Joseph Marin to hash out the details of the new clubs and secure police protection.
Larry, how you doing?
But there was a problem.
Look, I got some upsetting news.
What's up?
Their protector, Chief Corbett, had been removed by the Willow Springs City Council under suspicion of corruption. Marin knew another high-ranking law enforcement official who could provide the same protection as Corbett. Lieutenant James Keating, Cook County's Vice Squad Supervisor.
Tell you what, he deals with me.
U.S. Attorney Tom Scorza was not surprised by the development. Keating's reputation was well known.
Okay, you feel pretty confident about this guy?
Jim Keating was a lieutenant in the Cook County Sheriff's Police Department, but if anything, the rank understated his influence. He was a very well-connected officer in a very corrupt department. He had connections with people of higher rank who were also corrupt, and so he was a key figure.
With Corbett out of the picture, the FBI shifted their focus to Keating. Damron met with him at a restaurant outside of Willow Springs.
It allows me to really concentrate on my job.
Keating said he'd have no problem helping Damron expand his operations.
One thing we need to understand is if there's a situation that comes up.
But any move Damron made would have to be approved by him.
I make the decision when something goes down.
He warned Damron to play it straight with him and his people.
He told us that the one thing that he wouldn't tolerate was if someone double-crossed him. And he said if that happened, that they'd find us with our legs on one of the streets in the area and our head on another street in the area.
As instructed by the FBI, Damron proposed another operation. A club that would be a front for prostitution.
You want to hold on to this?
He gave the lieutenant the first of many payments to ensure police protection.
Looks like a bonus for the guys, huh?
Before he left, Keating said he knew someone who might be able to help him. A lawyer named Alan Masters. Though he had no direct dealings with Alan Masters, Damron had heard the name mentioned by Chief Corbett.
Well, I knew that Masters was a well-known attorney on the south side of Chicago, that he had a tremendous reputation for being able to get things done, particularly in the local court system, and the scuttlebutt was that he wasn't reluctant to pay bribes or to deal with people however he needed to.
Damron continued his meetings with his case supervisor, Special Agent Gordon Brooks. Damron needed to know everything he could about Alan Masters and his relationship with Keating and Corbett.
Now, you're in with Corbett. He's
The FBI and U.S. attorneys quickly established a hierarchy within this ring of corruption.
Okay, you're making your way up to Keating? Right. I want you to...
Corbett was the king in Willow Springs, but anytime he had to do something that involved the broader Cook County, he needed to get the permission of Keating. And Keating always had to check with the ultimate fixer, Alan Masters, to make sure everything could be handled at the court level.
I can maybe get Masters interested.
As the extent of Alan Masters' criminal activity became clearer, the FBI began looking closer at his possible role in his wife's disappearance. The two distinct cases were beginning to overlap, and Damron's objectives were broadening.
Authorities call 3 counties still.
He was a suspect in the disappearance of his wife. It was thought that if we could develop a relationship with him, there might be something there that would come to light and might be of some benefit to that investigation.
Damron learned that Alan Masters allegedly made payoffs to several area judges in exchange for favorable decisions.
Now, we need to have that hearing on the Sanderson case. It needs to go our way. We have an understanding of that, Judge?
Agents speculated that Diane might have witnessed her husband's illegal activity and threatened to expose him.
I think we can come to terms with that. Right this way, sir.
Now trying to elicit information about Diane's disappearance, Damron continued his efforts to make inroads into the corruption around Willow Springs. He met with Keating several weeks later to follow up on his plan to open a show club.
A good manager lined up.
Oh, I've got
Again, Keating mentioned that his friend Alan Masters could help.
Can take care of that. He's a real fixer.
Damron took the opportunity to bring up Alan's wife. Keating said little, but then added an unusual comment.
The same plan we had with the other one.
Probably heard him, seen him.
We talked about Masters' wife turning up missing, and Keating said, well, she turned up missing like the day before the divorce was going to be filed.
That was convenient, wasn't it?
It was convenient.
And chuckled about what a good circumstance that was.
Damron was cautious not to probe too far, fearing that Keating might grow suspicious.
You've known this fella for a long time?
Yeah,
You've known him for a while. I've worked with him before.
Sure, he can do.
As the meeting ended, Keating handed over Alan Masters' phone number, saying the lawyer was expecting his
You
call.
won't be implicated.
I just need to make sure lined up. I'm going with the same.
He proceeded to set up the meeting with Alan Masters.
Hello?
Mr. Masters, how are you? This is Larry Wright speaking.
The attorney agreed to help push through all the necessary permits and legal documents, which meant bribing officials and securing protection.
Yeah, we've been working pretty hard on it for a while now.
Well, someone I think it'd be a pretty
Masters
good
suggested
location.
they get together.
Talking about,
The meeting was set for the following week, Monday, December 13th.
Okay, I'll look forward to meeting you then. I think we can maybe do some business.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Before the meeting would take place, however, a police officer on routine patrol near the sanitary canal area in Willow Springs noticed something unusual. Tire tracks led directly into the canal. He immediately called for assistance. Little did he know that the lid was about to come off the underworld in Willow Springs.
Find these trucks out here and mark.
While the FBI continued their undercover operation in the Chicago suburb of Willow Springs, an officer out on routine patrol made an alarming discovery. Tire tracks leading directly into the sanitary canal. Police officers and a dive team responded to the site. Overseeing the investigation was James Ross, an honest cop appointed by City Council to replace Michael Corbett as the police chief in Willow Springs. Though Corbett had been ousted from the department, his legacy of corruption remained. Below the surface, divers found a virtual underwater parking lot. 82 cars lined the bottom of the polluted canal. U.S. Attorney Tom Scorza believed he knew why the cars were there. And who could make a profit by allowing them to be dumped without a police investigation?
Those are known as insurance give-ups, people who want to collect money on their car when the car is not worth very much anymore will find a way of losing the car and then reporting it stolen and collect the insurance. My belief was that Corbett had been the approver of all of the dumping of the cars in the Willow Springs Canal.
By nighttime, a third car had been dredged up, a yellow Cadillac. The license plate on the vehicle, DGM-19, was well known in Willow Springs. It was the tag registered to Diane Masters. Lieutenant Keating of the Cook County Sheriff's Department arrived at the scene. Chief Ross was surprised that Keating, a vice cop, had been notified. He asked Keating why he was there. Keating had no response. Officers continued examining the Cadillac. When they pried open the trunk, they discovered a decomposed body. Ross immediately ordered that the car and the body be taken back to a city garage where they could be thoroughly examined for clues. The decision not to use the police garage was well reasoned. Chief Ross knew this case potentially had far-reaching implications, and he couldn't trust his own officers. The fewer people nosing around, the better. State police began to scour the car and the body for evidence. They found .22 caliber shell casings in the trunk. The keys were still in the ignition. Eerily, the watch on the deceased body and the dashboard clock had stopped at exactly the same time, 1:50. They removed the body for further forensic investigation. The forensic team examining the body found the skull had been crushed. They also discovered 2 bullet hole entries in the left cheekbone. The bullet fragments inside the skull were removed and sent off to the FBI lab for ballistic evaluation. Dental records confirmed what everyone believed. The body found in the trunk was Diane Masters. The 9-month investigation into Diane's disappearance was now a homicide investigation.
Come on in.
Chief Ross called in Cook County Detective John Reed to work the homicide. He was to team up with the FBI, who was now taking over the murder investigation. Detective Reed was not to trust even his closest friends in the department. He was told that through the FBI undercover operation run out of NCS, law enforcement officers were being investigated for corruption. And some had ties to Alan Masters, who was now a firm suspect in Diane's murder.
Review those. All right. We were just talking about
As Agent Harris and Detective Reed initiated their murder investigation, Agent Dameron continued his undercover operation.
Reed today to set up a time and place for our meeting.
He called Alan Masters to confirm their meeting to set up the show club.
I'm jammed. I expect to be in court all day tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Well,
Masters was evasive and
next
seemed
week's
distracted.
Okay too, if that's okay with you.
Maybe we can work something out then. Just give me some time.
He canceled the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Wright.
Dameron immediately called Keating. With the conversation being
Keating.
recorded by the FBI, he hoped Keating would explain why Masters was being evasive.
No, I was wondering if you had any information on that.
As I said, he's pretty busy. How about if you give me a call in 3 or 4 weeks?
But Keating was cryptic.
Maybe we can work something out then.
He instructed Dameron not to bother Masters. He had too many problems to deal with.
Okay, bye.
the new show club would have to wait.
What do you got for me? Here are the transcripts.
Damron met with Agent Brooks. Masters and Keating both appeared nervous since Diane's body had been discovered. But that was hardly enough evidence to prosecute either of them for murder. Perhaps Damron had overlooked something. He handed over his tape-recorded conversations with Keating.
This is gonna nail him. We're gonna get him.
Can you play that again, please?
Over the next several months, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Cook County Sheriff's Department, and the FBI began the process of merging the various investigations.
All right. Well,
The link between them was Alan Masters, Cook County Lieutenant James Keating, and former Willow Springs Police Chief Michael Corbett.
If that's the case, if we can
It would fall on prosecutors to begin constructing a case proving that the three men and all of their activities represented an ongoing, organized criminal enterprise.
we can get the RICO prosecution happening.
And what we had to do in order to prosecute Masters and Corbett and Keating for a collection of their activities, including the homicide, we had to show that they made up a criminal organization, a mini-mafia.
Appreciate you meeting with us tonight, Mrs. Capstaff.
Well, if you guys don't
Detective Reed and Agent Harris's first step was to question Diane's friends who had been with her on the night she disappeared.
Okay.
You said that you followed her home that night.
One of Diane's colleagues, Genevieve Capstaff, had actually followed Diane home that evening after a board meeting.
And so I just wanted to see, so I followed her.
Capstaff claimed everyone on the Moraine Community College Board who worked with Diane suspected that she was having an affair with an economics professor. She admitted that she wanted to see if the two were going to rendezvous. She followed Diane to her street. When Diane turned to go home, Capstaff continued on.
Is there anything else that you can tell me?
Further
that
questioning
might have
revealed that all of the community college board members, including Diane, were given a $100,000 life insurance policy as part of their employment benefits.
$100,000.
Right, yes, but that only covers...
The policy specifically stated that proceeds would be paid if a board member died while traveling to and from board meetings. The policy was void when the board member entered their home.
That's all, but...
We appreciate your
Alan Masters claimed Diane never arrived home that night. He was therefore eligible to collect the insurance money. Several months before Diane's body was discovered in the trunk of her car, Masters filed a claim with the insurance company. After filling out all the paperwork, he sent it off. Though Diane's fate at that time was unclear, Masters had a judge declare her legally dead. As a result, he was about to receive $100,000. Alan Masters was fast becoming the FBI's prime suspect in the murder of his wife, Diane. Shortly after her body was discovered, investigators learned that he had filed a claim with his wife's insurance company. Within a few months, 2 checks appeared in the amount of $50,000 each. If federal agents and prosecutors could prove Masters was responsible for his wife's death and that he profited from it, it would be one more element that showed that he and his accomplices were involved in an ongoing criminal enterprise. Homicide in a federal racketeering case carries much more jail time than a state charge. As the investigation began to take on a clearer focus, FBI agents working the undercover case received bad news.
Listen, we're gonna have to move rather quickly on this.
The Washington Post had gotten word of the operation.
Listen, we're having a bit of a problem.
We're almost at the point where we can really make some impact.
The Post gave the FBI 3 weeks to wrap it up before running the story.
We have some have to be closed down. Is that right? Yeah, something like that.
All 16.
Agents had no choice but to quickly bring their undercover operations to a close.
Here, so please do me a favor.
For U.S. Attorney David Stetler, the timing couldn't have been better.
All right.
The project had run its course, and the bulk of the information anybody was ever going to get had been retrieved, and to make the operation go on longer would have resulted in additional evidence, but it also would have resulted in the evidence that had been gathered becoming more and more stale.
Agents had meticulously pieced together the web of corruption that extended to the nightclubs under mob control. Now it was time to shut them down.
Yo, FBI, open the door. Open the door.
The FBI hit all of the clubs on the same night with massive force. Several hundred officers and agents raided over a dozen clubs throughout Cook County, including those in Willow Springs.
Stay right here. Go on in, fellas. Stay right here.
Sit tight. All right, hands behind your back.
Ain't helping anything. Shut up.
Inside the clubs, federal agents were able to collect volumes of incriminating evidence. "55 people were indicted, including club owner Joseph Marin, Tony Spilatro, and his brother Victor. They were prosecuted in both the state and federal courts for extortion, prostitution, bribery, and racketeering. Several deputies from the Cook County Sheriff's Department and officers from the Willow Springs Police Department were also indicted and convicted for protecting these businesses. After 3 years of undercover work, the sting operation was now officially closed.
What's my friend's name?
For undercover Special Agent Larry Damron, it was finally time to leave the role of Larry Wright.
I would say the finish was elation and disappointment at the same time. Disappointment that there were so many opportunities out there to identify other criminal activity. We knew that that it was a good job, that we had gathered tremendous amounts of evidence, and that we had a real insight into some of the criminal activity that was taking place that we hadn't had before.
Alan Masters.
Local authorities, the FBI, and prosecutors could now focus exclusively on the Diane Masters murder investigation.
She said he hit her.
They continued questioning her friends and associates, including the man with whom she was allegedly having an affair.
There were other things that happened.
Economics professor Jim Koselniak. He confirmed that he and Diane had a relationship. He also claimed that Masters had abused Diane physically, mentally, and emotionally. She lived in fear of her husband. Diane had told him she planned to file for divorce. Koselniak also had reason to fear Alan Masters. One night, Koselniak and Diane had met for drinks at a local bar. He recalled that Diane called home to check on her daughter. Instead of getting the babysitter on the phone, Alan unexpectedly answered.
Alan?
He suspected she was with her lover.
I didn't know you were
He was
in trouble.
irate and began to threaten
I was
her.
calling to check on Andra.
He vowed to destroy her. Koselniak said Diane returned from the phone call and was very upset. He went to the bar for more drinks. There, a man suddenly confronted him and began firing off a series of questions.
Yes, I did.
The man never identified himself.
10-12 years.
What's your name?
He asked Koselniak's name and where he worked.
Koselniak.
Koselniak.
Though the man said little else, Koselniak felt he had just received a threat. Stay away from Diane.
And
Koselniak would later recognize the man as Lieutenant James Keating. He said that on the night of Diane's disappearance, she had called him and warned him not to meet her for drinks.
So this was an unusual move on her part.
They usually got together after her college board meetings.
What was the tone of voice?
Lately, she had been troubled by Alan's behavior.
That they were going to another restaurant.
Selniak took her advice and canceled their plans.
Met at the same place.
He never saw Diane again.
The meeting is always straight to RDG.
As a matter of fact, they're on the way now.
Agent Harris and Detective Reed continued to develop witnesses.
Hey, let you come by.
They discovered that Masters had hired a private investigator to keep tabs on Diane.
That his wife Diane.
We subsequently developed a cooperating individual named Ted Nakaza, who was a private investigator with Alan Masters. Masters had requested Ted Nakaza to place a bug on his home telephone number because he suspected his wife Diane was having an affair.
I got a few tapes.
Hey, what do you guys got for me?
Nakaza told investigators the bug was successful in exposing Diane and Koselniak's affair.
Good news.
Ted Nakaza played back a telephone conversation captured on tape where Diane was talking in a highly sexual way with the boyfriend, Jim Koselniak. According to Nakaza, after playing the tape, Alan Masters declared his intention to kill Diane and to get Keating to make it look like an accident.
Alan Masters wanted his wife murdered, and he had the resources to get away with it.
You gotta stay cool.
The FBI and local authorities continued to uncover evidence against Alan Masters and his associates that pointed towards a conspiracy to murder Alan's wife, Diane. Through a private investigator hired by Alan Masters, Diane's affair had been exposed.
His wife was cheating.
Alan's rage was out of control.
Yes.
But investigators had no hard evidence to charge him with murder. After an exhaustive 5-year investigation, that was about to change.
He intended to have Diane killed.
They uncovered a Cook County Sheriff's deputy who was willing to talk.
Agent Harris.
Deputy Jack Bachman had startling information.
Keating brought me into his
Bachman
office.
had been too afraid of the consequences of coming forward on his own.
Did he say any more?
He claimed that he had been approached to kill Diane. The offer had come through Lieutenant James Keating.
Bachman had a series of conversations with Keating, and ultimately Keating asked Bachman if Bachman would be interested in the job of actually stalking and killing Diane Masters.
Bachman said Keating offered him $25,000 to carry out the hit.
And,
Michael Corbett, the chief of police, had already agreed to dispose of the body. Bachman declined the offer.
No, sir, I'm sorry. I can't get involved in anything like that. No, no, sir.
Through Keating, Masters had clearly solicited a murder.
About this meeting we just had, and
Well, no, but he did offer me $25,000.
This was one of the final pieces prosecutor Scorza needed to bring an indictment.
He said he wanted to eliminate her. I said, what do you mean?
What we were able to show is that when Alan Masters decided to kill his wife, he simply was able to turn to the two police officers that he'd already been working with on corrupt activities and criminal activities. And that made the homicide and the planning of it and the solicitation of it, it made it an activity of the criminal enterprise.
The pieces had finally come together.
And Diane Masters.
Investigators put together a likely scenario of Diane Masters' murder.
She said she heard something.
Alan Masters had found a hitman to kill Diane and her boyfriend when they met for the usual drinks after her college board meeting. However, Diane didn't meet with Koselniak that evening.
You're home late tonight.
Meeting ran late.
Furious, Masters took matters into his own hands.
Alan Masters was at home babysitting their young daughter. He was setting up his alibi by making long-distance calls all night to prove that he was home. He never expected his wife to walk in the door. She did. She began the process of getting undressed, and he hit her with a blunt instrument, 2 blows to the head.
Masters then called Chief Corbett, who came with an unknown accomplice to dispose of the body. They dumped Diane's body in the trunk of her Cadillac. Corbett then drove away with the accomplice following him. Masters remained at home with his daughter. They drove to the remote sanitary canal. Diane's watch was reset to throw investigators off the trail should her body ever be found. They then fired 2 shots into her head. They wanted it to look like a mob hit. They also reset the dashboard clock to 1:50. Alan Masters made sure that he was on the phone at the time to corroborate his alibi. Corbett and the accomplice dumped the Cadillac into the canal. In June of 1988, 6 years after Diane's murder, investigators brought charges against the 3 conspirators. Former Police Chief Michael Corbett was the first arrested on federal charges of racketeering, bribery, and conspiracy to solicit and cover up the murder of Diane Masters. Special Agent Ivan Harris tried to elicit a confession.
Mike Corbett subsequently confessed that he was in fact the person that had put Diane Masters' car in the canal. He disavowed any knowledge, knowing that she was in the trunk of the car at that time.
Cook County Lieutenant James Keating was arrested next on the same federal charges. He too denied involvement in Diane's murder. And finally, Alan Masters. In addition to racketeering and bribery, the indictment against Alan Masters charged that he planned, solicited, and aided and abetted the murder of his wife.
If you wish one.
Prosecutors would not have enough hard evidence to charge any of the conspirators with the actual murder of Diane. Prosecutor Tom Scorza was able to successfully tie all of their criminal activities together for the jury. Masters was convicted on all counts. Collecting the $100,000 insurance money after having his wife murdered also made him guilty of mail fraud. He received a total of 40 years, effectively, to the end of his life. Former Chief Michael Corbett received 20 years. James Keating was convicted and sentenced to over 30 years.
The Masters case was special in my experience because there was no one single piece of evidence proving guilt. What there were 1,000 little pieces that made a mosaic. That was made the case intriguing. It made it very difficult to present. It made it a challenge to present to the jury, but it made a terrific story because in the end the jury could see how one little piece from over here and one little piece from over there made a picture, and the picture was a plot among 3 fellows who had been involved in a lot of criminal activity to do their ultimate criminal act, murder Diane Masters.
Watch yourself.
The undercover investigation that Agent Damron oversaw, and the work of several other FBI agents, exposed a deeply rooted corruption throughout Cook County and brought it to its ultimate demise. By weeding out these pockets of corruption, the people living in the suburbs of Chicago no longer have to live with the lawlessness that threatened to destroy their community.